Excellences, chers invités, mesdames et messieurs, je vous remercie de me donner...
Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, my sincere gratitude to you for affording me this opportunity to address the Assembly today and to welcome the Deputy Secretary General, Mrs. Amina Mohammed, who is stepping in for me. Africa is a continent of hope. For the past 20 years, the African Union has contributed to bringing to life this hope to enable the continent attain its full potential. From the CFTA to the recent launching of the Decade of Financial and Economic Inclusion for Women, and also the transformation of food and agricultural systems, cooperation between the African Union and the United Nations Organization is stronger today more than ever before. By the same token, both organizations are working hard to implement the UN 2030 Sustainable Development Goals and Agenda 2063, and this is really a cornerstone in our relationship. Your common vision and your unity of purpose is relevant today. We are living through very difficult times. Injustice is deeply entrenched in global systems, and the African people suffer the most. And because of the unequal distribution of COVID-19 vaccines, the rate of vaccination in the high-income countries is 7 times higher than the vaccination rate in African countries. A morally decadent global financial system has abandoned African countries, depriving the African people of the necessary investment opportunities, reducing growth prospects, and locking our African countries in an endless spiral of debt and staggering interest rates. The combat against nation and insufficient action to slow down climate change is affecting mostly the most vulnerable. The immoral inequalities is choking the African continent, stoking the embers of conflicts and political, economic, ethnic, social tensions, violation of human rights, violence against women,
Millions de personnes sont déplacées sur tout le continent.
Na canfa do continente e as instituições democráticas estão em perigo. O nosso mundo precisa de solidariedade e podem contar conosco e com a família das Nações Unidas para apoiar a África e nos nossos 4 motores de reconstrução, a saber, primeiro, nós devemos proporcionar as vacinas e a vacinação para todos e para todos. Saúdo a liderança na criação de uma equipa especial africana para a aquisição das vacinas, a VAT e de outros mecanismos que permitiram fornecer mais de 34 milhões de doses de vacinas contra a Covid em todo o continente. Saúdo igualmente o anúncio recente da produção de vacinas a partir deste ano na África do Sul e noutros países africanos. Solicito a todos os países desenvolvidos e a todos os fabricantes para que possam se juntar à causa da equipa especial VAT e ao mecanismo COVAX. Convido-os a criarem condições necessárias para que o número de países africanos capazes de produzir testes, vacinas e tratamentos em África sejam multiplicados, principalmente resolvendo os problemas de propriedade intelectual e fornecendo o apoio técnico e financeiro necessário. Também os peço para que se preparem para a próxima epidemia, investindo nos cuidados de saúde primária, na vacinação de rotina, que vão salvar vidas, na vigilância de saúde pública e apoiando a ação levada
tel que le Centre africain de prévention et de contrôle des maladies. Excellencies. Second, we need to ignite the engine of economic recovery by reforming the global financial system. Achieving the Sustainable Development Goals depends on supporting massive investments in strong health and education systems, in job creation, especially in the green and care sectors, and in universal social protection, gender equality, and opportunities for young people. But the deck is stacked against Africa. Sub-Saharan Africa is facing cumulative economic growth per capita over the next 5 years that is 75% less than the rest of the world. We need to accelerate investment into Africa. We need to deliver real investment resources, including by redirecting special drawing rights to countries that need support now reforming the international debt architecture for the future, increasing concessional forms of finance, and ensuring that African countries with sound economic fundamentals are not unduly penalized by markets and the ratings institutions. And we need to fuel the immense promise of the Continental Free Trade Agreement. Third, we need to ignite the engine of a green recovery across Africa. Africa contributes just 3% of global greenhouse gas emissions, but many of the worst impacts of climate change are being felt there. To address today's tragic reality, we need a radical boost in funding for adaptation and mitigation on the continent. The Glasgow commitment to double adaptation finance from $20 billion must be implemented. But this is not enough. Access and eligibility systems must be reviewed to allow developing countries to get the finance they need on time. I commend EU member states for ambitious nationally determined contributions and adopting the African Union Green Stimulus Programme. I am committed to working with the global community to match Africa's climate ambitions with the resources, financing and technologies it needs to accelerate the transition from coal to renewables and create new green jobs. I'm calling on wealthier countries to make good on the $100 billion climate finance commitment to developing countries starting this year, and hold to account private sector partners who have made commitments so far. Our planet will speed past the 1.5-degree temperature thresholds without steep emission cuts this decade by all major economies. We are in emergency mode, and we need all hands on deck. COP27 in Egypt will be an opportunity for Africa and our world. And fourth, we need to ignite the engine of peace across Africa. Conflicts and violence have many roots, from economic inequalities and competition for scarce resources to ethnic and religious tensions, among others. African states are proudly multi-ethnic, multi-religious, and multicultural. And the EU is about showing how people can coexist, even flourish, by working together. That requires inclusive and participatory structures that speak to this diversity in all its richness through governance that delivers for all. We need to bolster platforms for inclusivity, especially for young Africans. We need connectivity to access information, communication, education, and jobs. The United Nations is committed to working with the African Union to strengthen democratic and responsive governance structures and people's faith in them. This requires leadership on all sides. For example, we have signed an important new framework to ensure the EU peace support operations are planned and conducted in full compliance with international human rights and humanitarian law. Our recent shared commitment to take forward a joint strategic assessment on security in the Sahel to improve our collective effort is another example. And I reaffirm my appeal for a cessation of hostilities, humanitarian access, and inclusive national dialogue in Ethiopia, the seat of the African Union and a country that is critical to continental stability. And I pledge the full support of my good offices to silence the guns across the continent. From our joint missions and programs, to strengthening electoral processes and peaceful transfers of power, to the UN's peacekeeping and peacebuilding efforts, to our commitment to robust support to African forces and interventions to tackle terrorism across Africa, including my advocacy for the UN Security Council to support the predictable financing of Africa-led operations under Chapter 7. My report on our common agenda offers a fresh opportunity to rethink and reposition our approach to peace in Africa and ensure our peace architecture is fit for purpose to address the rapid shifts and changes we see across the continent and around the world. I encourage your continued engagement as we advance this agenda together. Excelências, não é fácil alcançar a paz, mas a paz é absolutamente necessária. Continuemos a trabalhar juntos, com um objetivo comum em mente, com e para os povos de África. Vamos dar vida às palavras do falecido arcebispo Desmond Tutu: a minha humanidade está dependente da vossa, porque apenas juntos somos humanos. Ao iniciar-se esta cimeira, reitero que as Nações Unidas se orgulham de percorrer este caminho convosco na luta pela dignidade, pela igualdade, pela paz e pela justiça para todos. Com solidariedade, e sempre guiados por um espírito de humanidade e de esperança. Muito obrigado.